When it comes to the greatest F1 livery of all time, that debate has been going on for years, and I'm sure it's going to continue for years to come. Everyone has their favorites, and everyone has their pick of what they think is the best of the best. But I wanted to do a fun little experiment over on my Twitter to basically let my subscribers and my followers over there decide what is the greatest F1 livery of all time through a series of polls. Now, I'd love to use my Instagram and my Twitter and all of my social medias for these kinds of things because it's always fun to get your opinions on these kinds of topics. Now, if you want to be involved in something like this in the future, then don't forget to follow me on both my Instagram and my Twitter. I use them periodically for different things, but yeah, definitely go and follow me on both of those. Now, the way I decided to do this is by polling all of my followers over on Twitter on what is the greatest F1 livery of all time, and basically putting two different liveries head to head to kind of come down to just one single livery, which of course is the greatest F1 livery as voted by the fans. Now, we're going to go through what the results were in just a second, and then at the end of the video, I'm also going to kind of tell you what my favorite livery of all time is and complete the bracket, and you'll kind of understand as we go along in terms of what I mean by that. But yes, let's get into this and start right at the beginning. Now, the first thing that I decided to do is send out just a very simple tweet, basically asking, I want to do a greatest livery showdown, so I need your help. What is your favorite livery of all time? You can also put more than one. Let me know below. Now, the engagement on this was absolutely fantastic. I got hundreds of comments, so thank you to everyone that commented. Also, what was quite interesting is that there were kind of two different types of liveries, because there were some liveries that were purely chassis specific. For example, the Jordan 191, which was only on the 1991 Jordan, and some liveries that kind of span decades and generations of F1 cars, like the famous Marlboro McLaren, which we saw from both the turbo cars with Alain Prost and Niki Lauda, to all the way with the likes of Ayrton Senna into the 90s. Now, from that massive pool of liveries, I had to narrow it down to just 16 liveries. It was so difficult, and there were some great ones that did get left out, but yeah, it was a really tough job to just narrow it down to 16. I tried to pick kind of all of the most popular ones that people suggested, and also cars from different generations as well, so that we kind of got a really good mix of great F1 liveries. Now, from those 16 liveries, I then put them in a random number generator that would create a random bracket of the greatest F1 liveries of all time. So, from that random generator, this was the bracket that was produced, and oh my god, I mean, immediately just as when I saw this, I knew that there was going to be some tough, and I knew that there was going to be some great liveries that were going to go out in just the very first round. But starting from the top left and working our way down, we have the Marlboro McLarens, we have the Mercedes W11, we have the Ferrari 641, the Marlboro Ferraris, the Red Bull RB9, the Mild 7 Renault, the Alpine A521, we have the Brabham BT52, and then over on the right hand side we have the Jordan 191, the Williams FW14B, the Jordan 198, the John Player Special Lotuses, the Brawn, the Golf McLaren, and then the Jaguar, and then the Vodafone McLaren as well. This was the final bracket, the final 16, but now it was time to start the polls. It was time to send each one of these liveries head to head, and that is exactly what I did. Every single day for, I think it was just over a week, I put one single poll every single day, and yes, now let's get into the results of each of these polls, and let's work our way through the bracket to find out what the fans voted as the greatest F1 livery of all time. Let's go. Now, first up, we have the Marlboro McLaren versus the Mercedes W11. Now, over 1,300 people voted on this poll, with 69.3% of the votes going to the McLaren and only 30.7% going to the Mercedes, meaning that the Marlboro McLaren is the livery that is going to go through on to the next stage into the final 8. So that is how all of the polls worked, and I just want to explain that just for this one because we have got a lot to get through, but yeah, that was the first one. Next up, we had a battle of two Ferraris, with the Ferrari 641 versus the Marlboro Ferraris, which of course were famously driven by Michael Schumacher to his 5 world titles. Now, only 30.9% voted for the 641, with 69.1% voting for the Marlboro Ferraris, so that was the livery to go through. Next up, we had the Red Bull RB9 from 2013, which of course took Sebastian Vettel to his 4th driver's title, and also we had the Mild 7 Renaults from the the mid-2000s, which took Fernando Alonso to both of his championships. Now, the overwhelming winner was the Renault with 63.5%, with 36.5% going to the Red Bull. Next up, we had the Alpine A521 versus the Brabham BT52. Now, in terms of the Alpine, massive shout out, of course, to Sean Ball, who was part of the design team to design that livery. So, yeah, he created a stunning livery, and unsurprisingly, it was the winner with 77.3% of the vote, with the Brabham getting just 22.7%. Now, next up, and this one was a battle of the giants. When I did my random generator and I saw that this was going to be a first round head-to-head, I could not believe it because I love both of these, and it is the Jordan 191, which of course Michael Schumacher famously made his debut in F1 with, and the Williams FW14B, which took Nigel Mansell to his One World Championship in 1992. Now, I just could not believe it. I love both of these liveries, and unsurprisingly, look at how close this poll was. 50.6% of the vote went to the Jordan 191, with 49.4% going to the Williams. That is unbelievably close, but the Jordan just edged it, and I could not believe a livery as good as the Williams was knocked out this early, but that's just the luck of the random generator. And yeah, this one was unbelievably tight, but also just amazing to see how close it actually went. Next up, we have another Jordan from the late 90s, and it is the Jordan 198, the famous yellow Jordan, versus the John Player Special Lotus liveries. Now, this one was not quite as close as the other one. The overwhelming favorite was the John Player Special with 74.3%, with the Jordan getting just 25.7%. Next up, and we have just two more to go in the final 16, and we have the Brawn livery from 2009, which of course took Jenson Button to his one and only championship in 09, and the most recent addition to the list, which is the McLaren Golf livery, their one-off special livery for the 2021 Monaco Grand Prix, and it was actually very, very close, but the McLaren Golf livery just edged it with 53% of the vote going to that one, and 47% of the vote going to the Brawn. And last up in the round of 16, we had the Chrome Vodafone McLaren, which ran for different generations and quite a few years. Famously, of course, Lewis Hamilton made his debut in one of those McLarens, and then those beautiful early to mid 2000s Jaguars, that beautiful green. And yeah, both of these liveries are absolutely amazing, but the Vodafone McLaren basically won this one hands down with 83.9% of the vote, with the Jaguar getting just 16.1%. So that was the end of round one. We have gone from 16 to just 8, and here were the final 8, all amazing liveries. And by the way, I should say, every single livery in this video is amazing. There are no bad liveries. There is a very good reason why all of these were kind of selected for the greatest F1 livery showdown, because all of them are absolutely beautiful in their own way. But yeah, this was the final 8, and now let's get into the polls and let's narrow this down to just the final 4. So, first up, we have two incredible liveries, two incredible teams, and so many incredible drivers involved with both of these liveries. We had the Marlboro McLaren versus the Marlboro Ferrari, and in this case, it was the McLaren that got the W with 63.9% of the vote, with the Ferrari getting only 36.1%, and sadly, that meant no more Ferraris. Next up, then we had the Mild 7 Renault versus the Alpine A521, battle of the Fernando Alonso cars, and it was the Renault, the Mild 7 Renaults that he drove in the mid-2000s, and that won quite convincingly actually with 69.6% of the vote versus just 30.4% of the vote for the 2021 Alpine. Now, next up, we have the Jordan 191 versus the John Player Special Lotuses. And once again, take a look at how close this poll was. I mean, the Jordan 191 just cannot stay away from ridiculously close polls. However, sadly, the Jordan has fallen. Hey, that rhymes. It only got 49.3% of the votes. That was fantastic, to be honest. But the John Player Special Lotus got the W and goes through to the next round with 50.7% of the vote. And then last up in our final 8 is two McLarens. We have the Vodafone McLaren versus the McLaren Golf. And it was an easy victory for the Vodafone McLaren with 62.3% of the vote compared to just 37.7% for the Golf. And now, something that was really cool about this tweet and this poll in particular is that the Vodafone UK official Twitter account decided to chime in as well and say the Vodafone McLaren OBS. And as you can see, Tomo also decided to chime in and said biased. And to to be fair, he is right, but hey, their livery got the dub, so what can you say? But yeah, I just love that the official Vodafone UK account decided to chime in as well, so yeah, that was kind of fun as well. However, that is it. That wrapped up the final 8, and we were down to just 4. And it was the Marlboro McLaren, the Mild 7 Renault, the John Player Special Lotus, and the Vodafone McLaren. 4 iconic, unbelievable, beautiful liveries, but there can only be one winner. So now it was time to go from 4 to just 2. Here we go. Now, first up, we had the Marlboro McLaren versus the Mild 7 Renault livery, and the winner was the Marlboro McLaren livery with 62.7% of the votes compared to just 37.3%. So yeah, that was close. Sadly, the Renault falls, and it is the Marlboro livery that goes through into the final. There was just one more space left in the final, and it was going to be between the John Player Special Lotus livery and the Vodafone McLaren livery, and the winner, once again, it is going to be an all McLaren final with the Vodafone McLaren grabbing the W with 70.2% of the votes, with only 29.8% going to the John Player Special. And so that is it. We have our 2 finalists, and now it was time to let the fans decide what would be voted as the greatest F1 livery of all time. So, this is it. One more poll to go, and it is between the Marlboro McLaren and the Vodafone McLaren. And the winner, after all of the voting, after all of this time, the winner of the greatest F1 livery showdown is the Vodafone McLaren. It won the final poll with 53.7% of the voting, with the Marlboro McLaren getting 46.3%. So that is it. The Vodafone McLaren, as driven by the likes of Lewis Hamilton, Jenson Button, and even Sergio Perez, that was voted by the fans over on Twitter as the greatest F1 livery of all time. And that brings to an end an incredible experiment. 20,513 people voted altogether in all of these polls. So thank you so much. I appreciate every single last one of you. And yeah, this was just a really fun experiment to make. The Vodafone McLaren was the winner, but let me know in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'm sure there is going to be so many different opinions, but in the end, this was just a really fun experiment to do. And yeah, let me know what you thought in the comments below. Now, before I do end the video, one last thing that I thought that would be quite cool for me to do is go through that bracket of 16 liveries and do it myself. So yeah, let's get into this. Now, beginning with the Marlboro McLaren versus the Mercedes W11, both great liveries, but for me, it has to be the McLaren, especially after I got the chance to see it. When I went to the MTC with Veloce, I mean, that Marlboro livery, you don't realize how it pops in real life until you see it for yourself, and it is an absolutely gorgeous livery, both in photos, in videos, and especially in real life as well. Next up, the battle of the Ferraris, the 641 versus the Marlboro Ferrari. I'm going to surprise a lot of people. I'm going to go with the 641. Now, that might be a controversial choice, but just the shape of the car. I love the look of the cars from the late 80s, early 90s period, and that livery is just, it's actually so simplistic. It doesn't have too much about it, but the shape of the car, the simple Ferrari logos on the side pods, and even the other sponsors like the Goodyear on the rear wing, it's so simplistic, it's so perfect, and I just like it a little bit more over that amazing kind of Schumacher Ferrari Marlboro liveries. But yeah, both amazing liveries, but for me, it's got to be the 641. Next up, we have the Red Bull RB9 versus the Mild 7 Renault. For me, it's got to be the Mild 7 Renault, but what I will say is that I love that Red Bull so much from 2013. I really especially love the little hints of purple that they added, but it's got to be the Mild 7. That color combination is just incredible. And I think, honestly, that blue and yellow, it would look amazing on pretty much any generation of car. Next up, we have the Alpine A521 versus the Brabham BT52. It's got to be the Alpine for me, although I will say for the Brabham, I love the shape of it. When you look at the radiators, I mean, they're almost by the rear wheels. I mean, it looks like such a dart. The shape of this car is just crazy. I've never seen anything like it, and the livery is also just amazing. But I got to see this Alpine livery for myself when I went to Silverstone to watch the 2021 British Grand Prix, and that blue was just something else. It popped every single time in the British sun. It had such an effect on me, and yeah, easily my favorite. It was actually my favorite livery at the beginning of the year out of all of the 2021 liveries, and it definitely is still. Moving over to the right hand side of the bracket, we have the Jordan 191 versus the Williams FW14B. Now, I've got to be honest, before this video, when I knew that I was going to do this, I went backwards and forwards about 10 or 12 times with these ones. So I'm not going to spend 5 minutes going backwards and forwards. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to go with the Jordan, but I love both of these liveries. They're so amazing. I could not believe still that this was a round one choice in this bracket. But yeah, what can you say? Both amazing liveries, but the Jordan just edges it for me past the Williams. Next up, we have, again, another Jordan, the 198 versus the John Player Special Lotuses. I love the Jordan, but for me, this is an easy one. I think any generation of this John Player Special livery looks amazing, whether it's from the 70s, 80s, you know, you name it. It's just such a great livery. It looks so amazing, and even especially with the helmet of Ayrton Senna as well to just make it pop even more. So, next up, we have the Brawn versus the Golf. For me, this is a really easy one. It has to be the Brawn. As much as I love the Golf livery, and of course, again, I got to see it when I went to the MTC, the Brawn livery for me is so futuristic. It's so unique. We're never going to see it again, and we've never seen it before or since, so it always has just stuck with me so much, you know, right here. So it has got to be the Brawn for me. It really is, though, a Marmite livery. Some people love it, some people hate it. I totally understand that, but for me, I absolutely love the Brawn livery. So yeah, that has to get the choice for me. And then we have the Jaguar versus the Vodafone McLaren. This is, again, kind of an easy one. As much as I love the Jaguar, and I love the green of the Jaguar especially, I think that's something that definitely needs to be brought back. I'm not a big fan of the Aston Martin green. I much prefer that green of the Jaguar compared to the modern Aston Martin from 2021. But yeah, I mean, the Vodafone McLaren, so iconic, and that chrome paintwork, it's something that we've never seen before in F1 or even since. So yeah, and that's kind of when I started watching F1, so there's so much nostalgia value for me, and just as a livery, I think it is stunning. And again, I wasn't surprised that it kind of won the eventual vote of the fans. Going back to the top left and making our way, we have the McLaren versus the Ferrari. This has to be the McLaren for me. I think it just edges it, but again, both are absolutely stunning, and it is Alain Prost versus Ayrton Senna, so we love to see it, but it's Senna and McLaren that are going to get the dub there. Fernando Alonso versus Fernando Alonso. Similar to the Vo, I'm also going to go with the mild 7 Renault. As much as I love the Alpine, I think the Renault just edges it, and I think it's that hint of yellow. I think the Alpine is obviously kind of blue and red, but for me, blue and yellow just works so much better, and that gets the win. Going up to the top right, we have the Jordan 191 and the John Player Special Lotus. For me, this is actually a bit of an easier one. It is the Jordan 191. I think that combination, that livery, those colors, as much as I love the JPS liveries, I think the Jordan just edges it. It's always been a livery that really speaks to me, so yeah, it is going to get the W there. This was a really tricky one, actually, for me. I'm kind of going backwards and forwards even now. The Brawn versus the McLaren. I'm still going to go with my heart. I'm going to go with the McLaren, although I do love the Brawn. I mean, you guys know that I love the Brawn, clearly. But yeah, the McLaren is just going to get the vote there. Place it. There we go. So only 4 liveries left for me. The Marlboro McLaren versus the mild 7 Renault. Another tricky one. Love both of them, but this is actually a bit of an easier one. I love that. I love this livery of the Renault. I mean, again, the colors, I just can't get away how well they work, and whether you put them on a modern chassis, a concept, whether you put them in another game, for example, that livery just works. Even the little hints of kind of fluoro yellow due to the Telefonica, great livery in my opinion. The Jordan 191 versus the Vodafone McLaren, 2 of my absolute favorites. I love any of these, and to be honest, my mind can probably change from day to day, but I know which one I'm going to go with, and it is going to be the Vodafone McLaren. I'm sorry, Jordan 191, I do love you, but yeah, it is going to be the McLaren just. And then that leaves us the final 2, and to be honest, not really a tricky choice for me, because for anyone that knows what my favorite livery of all time is, yeah, for me it is, I mean, I love both of these again, but for me, the mild 7 Renault. It is my favorite livery of all time, that blue and yellow. It's so iconic. I remember seeing it for the first time back when I was watching Top Gear, and of course Richard Hammond got to drive Fernando Alonso's championship-winning Renault, and that was before I even kind of knew anything about Formula 1 before. That was way before I even started watching F1, but seeing Richard Hammond drive that car, strangely, that segment on Top Gear, seeing this car, seeing that livery, that is what kind of lit a spark in me, and really, that's what made me fall in love with F1, so there is so much nostalgia value for me into that livery, and of course that driver as well, Fernando Alonso, that always helps, but yeah, to me, the mild 7 Renault, that blue and yellow combination, that in my opinion is the greatest livery of all time. And so that is the end of the video. I hope you did enjoy this kind of really interesting experiment, seeing what the fans voted for as the greatest F1 livery, and also see me complete the bracket as well. Now, if you want to complete this bracket yourself, I'll have that link in the description box down below, so definitely check that out. And if you did enjoy this video, then don't forget to drop a like and smash that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow me on all of my social medias if you also want to be involved in another one of these videos or polls in the future as well. And I'll see you in the next one.